All right, so let's talk about Canada. So Canada has an organ harvesting problem, or if you maybe want to look at the globalist elites, it's probably a positive thing for the Canadian government and for the United States government, which gets to reap the benefits of this organ harvesting of MAID patients. It's demonic, it's deeply satanic. We are looking at the transhumanist agenda unfolding right before our eyes in Canada. David Krayden joins us now from Ottawa, Canada, to talk about that and so much more. David, we're getting some deeper facts now about this organ harvesting that has been unfolding because of the MAID program. Maybe you can walk us through the mechanics of this and how this is actually affecting people. Oh, you're muted, David.
How many times I ever done that? Well, you know, Clayton, we predicted that this was precisely what was going to happen with the medical assistance in dying program. That it was not only going to become inevitable in expanding its scope of so-called eligible people, but that organ harvesting was going to become part of this practice. So now I don't think we know where legality begins and illegality ends, or illegality begins and legality ends. Because now we have an organ harvesting program that has essentially been started because of the euthanasia program in Canada. So I can tell you how much you can trust the Canadian government to do the right thing, to do the honest thing, to do something with any scruples behind it. And that's exactly zero. We have the most corrupt government ever in Ottawa right now. The Liberal government of Mark Carney is the most corrupt government. And I predict this is exactly where the founders, the progenitors of the MAID program, wanted this to go, into organ harvesting. And so now, therefore, we can start selling these organs at tremendous profit to the United States and to other interested countries. And this is beyond disgusting. You called it demonic, Clayton. That's precisely what it is. Canada is a demonic cult of death, headed by the high priest, Mark Carney. His predecessor, of course, was Justin Trudeau, where all of this began. Canada is a country that has no abortion law, for instance. We have abortion on demand, unrestricted abortion on demand, up till the birth and including, I believe, the birth of the child. We also have a euthanasia program that is so accessible now, it just keeps expanding. And of course, a couple of years ago, it was going to be expanded to the mentally ill and the addicted and even the children. But the Liberal government sort of put the brakes on that. There was such pushback from psychiatric associations and psychologists. They decided just to slow things down a bit. I predict that expansion is coming in the near future, and they'll do it very quietly. And they'll do it behind doors, closed doors, because Mark Carney has passed legislation now that this kind of activity can remain cabinet confidential and does not have to be revealed to the media or the public. This can all be done in clandestine activity. And this is exactly where they wanted to go with this program, Clayton. Yeah. It is horrifying, but this is the end result of a society that does not value life.
Well, and we got some new information from Jim O'Neill, who is the Deputy Health and Human Services Secretary, and he has condemned this. So I think one of the reasons we're getting maybe some more information about this over the past few days at least is from Jim O'Neill. And he's saying that this is a permissive program for ill patients. And he says that this has crossed ethical boundaries by increasing the deceased organ donation rates. And, you know, we point to these statistics. He points out, he says, we thought we'd seen all the possible horrors, you know, in America. And then Canada has this strange new horror that was really just shocking, he says, end quote. We have from 2018 to 2022, the number of deceased donors who died by physician-assisted suicide increased from 4.9% in 2018 to 14% in 2022. That's 4 years ago. I can only imagine that it's exploded since then, David.
Well, it has. Canada is the assisted suicide capital of the world. And the problem here, Clayton, is that you can't get an operation in Canada under our so-called free healthcare system, under Medicare, which so many Americans are lusting after because they think, oh, it's the answer. Canada's Medicare. It's just so good. Well, the problem with that, Clayton, is that you can wait 6 months for a hip replacement operation. Never mind if you have stage 3 cancer. So what are the authorities saying? I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to stop your cancer growth in time. We just don't have a surgeon available. We can't get you on the operating table. But guess what? We have medical assistance in dying, and we're going to offer that to you. And by the way, maybe you can donate the organ to us afterwards. That's exactly where we're coming to. Clayton, I have talked to people who have been offered MAID simply because they're depressed, simply because they're waiting for an operation, and it's not necessarily even a life-saving operation. They're just waiting. So the people come around and say, well, you have an option here. If things get just too heavy for you, have you considered medical assistance in dying? And people who are suffering from the COVID shot, I have had people on my program talking about this. Kayla Pollitt, who is a quadriplegic as a result of the COVID shot. She was an athlete before COVID. She's been offered MAID twice instead of getting any help with her sickness from the federal government. So never mind trying to help people's lives. Let's just offer them death. That's where this Liberal government has gone under Justin Trudeau, and now is continuing the same course under Mark Carney. And it is horrifying.
And now in the United States, 11 states are now also getting on board with this because it's all part of this liberal, globalist, demonic agenda to just push people to kill themselves and then to harvest their organs. Deeply, deeply disturbing. David, you've got some other news that I want to get to, too, in Canada, because we just got some information on the Emergencies Act. And I also want to talk about the ostrich farm that we've been covering for the past few months. They got hit with a big fine, unfortunately, by the government. But let's talk about the Emergencies Act first, because a big court ruling has now come out against the use of the Emergencies Act, which, of course, squashed the Freedom Convoy truckers. This sets enormous precedent. Can you tell us what happened here?
Well, this is perhaps the best news of the month. It's easily the best news of the month. The Federal Court of Appeal rejected an appeal from the Liberal government, saying that a previous decision by Justice Richard Mosley in January 2024, a federal court judge who said the use of the Emergencies Act, which is essentially, for those who are unfamiliar with this concept, it's martial law. That's what the Emergencies Act is. Justin Trudeau proclaimed it on February 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day, to crush the Freedom Convoy, to crush the trucker protest. Justice Mosley said in January 2024 that was inappropriate, unjustified, wrong, and unconstitutional. The Liberal government under Trudeau at the time appealed that decision. The decision came down last Friday. They rejected that appeal, and they went even further. And this is what I find fascinating, Clayton. The Federal Appeal Court went even further than Justice Mosley. Not only was it unconstitutional, it broke charter rights. It violated foundational charter rights, the Charter of Rights and Freedom in Canada, which is part of our Constitution. And the judges involved in this appeal decision all said it violated charter rights. Now, this could have tremendous ramifications and consequences for a lot of people who suffered as a result of being in the Freedom Convoy protest. Bank accounts were frozen. Remember that. People were not able to access money. People were jailed. And I'll tell you, this could have extremely positive consequences for a lot of people in the Freedom Convoy.
Well, that's great news. Well, we got some bad news, so we have to pour some water on all of it, though. It's what happened to the Universal Ostrich Farm, and our friend Katie Pasitny, of course, who dealt with the horror there of them slaughtering all the ostriches. As you alerted me just a short time ago, they just got hit with a fine on top of having all of their ostriches slaughtered.
And just literally 12 hours before the federal appeal court came down with this decision. And talking to Katie over the last couple of days, she has said to me, what's really going on here? This is look over here, not over there, because the government can still punish you if you disagree with them. I believe she's right. This looks like a coincidence. However, why did they come down with this fine within 24 hours of the other decision being made that was in favor of freedom in this country? I think it was a direct single and symbol of how this liberal government hates freedom and likes to oppress people. So $10,000 fine for what, you might ask? And of course, it's been over 2.5 months now since this massacre of the ostriches. Well, the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, is arguing that the farm did not properly report sickness at the farm in December 2024. Yes, that long ago. And that they were only informed, the CFIA was only informed as a result of a random tip, an anonymous tip. Now, within minutes, perhaps an hour of this decision being made, Katie Pasitny, spokeswoman for the farm, had all of the call logs on her Facebook page. She had all of the evidence posted that the CFIA, true to form, not only do they do massacres very well, they congenitally and chronically lie. This is an agency of deep mendacity. And it was completely erroneous, completely untrue that the farm did not seek veterinary advice as to the sickness on the farm, which, of course, has never actually been conclusively shown to be avian influenza. It was based on two PCR tests, which we now know are hugely inaccurate, as Redacted has reported, but on 2 dead birds. So we never even actually substantiated what the sickness was. But then the CFI has the gall to say they didn't report it, which they did, and they have the proof. They've got the receipts for that one. And then this anonymous tip came after they had actually reported it. So they've got them dead to rights. They've got the CFIA. Katie has proven that the farm, once again, is innocent. The CFIA is up to their lying ways and trying to extract another $10,000 from this family. Their farm looks like a war zone. They have ruined the farm. They have left bales of hay all over the place as the snow descends for winter. They have done everything possible to destroy the lives and the livelihood of this family. They failed at that, but they destroyed the farm in the process. And today, they've got the absolute nerve to suggest this has something to do with public health, finding this farm now, after they've destroyed all of the animals. They've destroyed the ostriches. So this, as Katie says, this makes absolutely no sense, except if you think it's about punishment. That's all this is, to hold the farm up again, right, to absolute ridicule and hatred from the people who believe somehow this was all necessary and they brought this on themselves. Yeah. And that's who the CFI is trying to appeal to. They're trying to appease. It's not working, Clayton. People are looking at this and they're saying, there they go again, terrorizing this farm, trying to humiliate this family and trying to push them further down.
Well, and not only that, but the irony of, if I can, the irony of fining them for not reporting it, but the threatening to fine them when they were trying to get their own vets to find out if the animals were sick. Like that's they're going to fine them what, $250,000 if they got their own vet. $250,000 and 6 months in jail if they had tested their ostriches without
the approval of the CFIA, which the CFIA, of course, refused to give because they knew those birds were healthy. This was the game they were playing. So you're quite right, Philip. What an irony.
Awful. Oh, poor woman. But what's happened to them up there is just absolutely awful. Well, David, thank you so much for shedding light on it as usual. Thanks for your great work. Thanks for covering a couple of stories for us today that we wanted updates on. So my, anyway, my thoughts go out to Katie and the team over there. But thank you for your great work up there in Ottawa, David. As always, great to see you.
Always nice to see you too, Clayton. Thank you so much for having me on.
You bet. Thanks, David.